The old van rumbled like a dying beast, its engine coughing every few miles as Diego Reyes gripped the wheel tighter, eyes fixed on the sun-bleached road ahead. His knuckles were cracked, fingernails rimmed with oil from the early morning fix he had prayed would hold the vehicle together until nightfall. The desert sun baked the metal around him, turning the cab into a slow-cooking oven. From the back, a soft voice piped up. "Are we almost there, Poppy?" Diego glanced at the rearview mirror. Mateo's eyes were heavy, cheeks flushed pink from the heat. He reached behind the seat, blindly fishing for the lukewarm water bottle and handed it back. "Just a little longer, mi corazón," he said softly. "Try to rest." He didn't add that there was still another 100 miles away. A new warehouse job in Yuma. His last chance to start over, to stop drifting from one gig to the next with a kid in tow and guilt eating away at his soul. Since Elena died, life had become a fragile string of patchwork days and sleepless nights. And yet somehow they'd made it this far. The road shimmered ahead, warped by heat. No signs. No gas stations. Just red dirt, broken fences and miles of silence. A shape. Diego blinked. At first he thought it was a mirage. But no, there was someone out there. A figure stumbling along the shoulder. As he got closer, his pulse quickened. It was a woman, pregnant, barefoot, skin scorched by the sun, dress torn at the hem. Then she dropped. Diego slammed the brakes, the van skidding slightly before grinding to a halt. "Mijo, stay in the van," he shouted, throwing the door open. The heat hit him like a wall as he sprinted toward her. She lay crumpled in the dirt, breathing shallowly, her lips cracked, hands trembling over her swollen belly. "Señora," he said gently, crouching beside her. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, then rolled back. Diego touched her wrist, her pulse was faint. He looked around. Nothing but desert in every direction. No time for questions. He lifted her into his arms, she was lighter than expected, and carried her back to the van, trying to keep his breathing calm. Mateo's eyes widened as he opened the sliding door. "Poppy, who is that?" "She needs our help, buddy," Diego said, easing her onto the back seat and giving Mateo a comforting glance. "We're gonna help her, okay?" Mateo nodded solemnly. Diego turned the van around. He knew of a small outpost 20 miles back. A dusty diner with a first aid kit and a cranky old cook who once let him fill his tires for free. The woman moaned softly, her hand moving protectively to her belly. "Hang on," Diego murmured. "Don't you give up on me." The outpost wasn't much. A diner, a gas pump that hadn't worked in years, and a trailer with peeling paint. But it was something. Diego burst through the diner door, carrying the woman as the cook, Marvin, stared in shock from behind the counter. "What the hell?" "She's dehydrated. Pregnant. Collapsed on the road." "Jesus. Bring her here." They laid her across the booth as Marvin grabbed a water bottle and some damp towels. Diego gently dabbed her forehead while Marvin tried calling the nearest clinic, which was nearly 40 minutes away. "Reception's trash," Marvin muttered. "I'll drive there myself if she don't wake up soon." But then she stirred. Her eyes fluttered open again, and this time she stayed conscious. She stared at Diego, confused, scared. "You're safe," he said gently. "I found you on the road. Do you remember anything?" Her lips moved, but no sound came. "Here," he offered her water. She drank greedily, then coughed. "Thank you," she whispered hoarsely. "My name is Lydia." Diego gave her a warm smile. "I'm Diego. That's my son Mateo." Mateo waved shyly from across the diner. "What were you doing out there alone?" Marvin asked. Her expression darkened. I was trying to get away." Diego didn't push. He knew that tone. That pain. The way someone speaks when the truth is too heavy to unpack all at once. "I was married," she added after a long pause. "My husband passed away last month. Heart attack. We were driving cross-country to move in with his parents. But after he died, they said I was on my own." She looked down at her belly. "I didn't know what else to do. So I started walking." Diego's throat tightened. The desperation in her voice mirrored something he'd felt so many times himself. He glanced at Mateo, now busy coloring on a napkin, unaware of the adult pain crackling in the air. "You need rest," Diego said. "We'll stay here for the night. I can drive you to a clinic in the morning." Lydia looked at him, eyes wide. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Diego smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. Because once someone helped me when I didn't deserve it. And I've been trying to pay it forward ever since. That night they shared a booth in Marvin's trailer. Lydia lay on the couch with a blanket, while Mateo curled up against Diego in a sleeping bag on the floor. In the stillness, Lydia spoke softly. My husband's name was James. We weren't married long. We met during COVID. He was a paramedic. Kind, stubborn. Saved everyone but himself. Diego listened, watching the ceiling, hand gently resting on Mateo's back. I'm scared, Lydia whispered. I don't know how to do this alone. You're not alone tonight, he said. We'll figure it out tomorrow. She looked over, eyes glassy. Thank you. He nodded. Get some sleep. In the morning they left early. Marvin gave them gas and a packed lunch, refusing payment. Lydia was stronger now. She insisted on sitting in the front seat. Diego offered her his only pillow to cushion the seatbelt across her belly. As the van rolled across the sunrise-streaked desert, Lydia broke the silence. Where are you headed? Yuma. Job at a distribution center. Night shifts. Nothing glamorous, but it pays. She hesitated. Would it be okay if I came along? Just until I figure out my next step. Diego glanced at her. She looked down, embarrassed. I know I'm asking a lot. There's no one else. He thought of Mateo. Of Elena. Of how kindness had once saved him when he was falling apart. And he nodded. We'll figure it out. That was the beginning. Of long desert nights and split gas station dinners. Of hospital visits and baby kicks. Of Mateo falling asleep against Lydia's belly, whispering, I think the baby likes me. It wasn't easy. Nothing about their life was. But it was real. And slowly the van, that rusted, wheezing van, became something more than just a vehicle. It became a shelter. A family. A beginning. And none of them knew it yet. But this simple act of kindness would echo farther than Diego ever imagined. 2 weeks after Lydia moved into their van life limbo, Diego realized something strange. It didn't feel temporary anymore. They had settled into a rhythm. Diego worked long nights at the Yuma warehouse, back-breaking labor, stacking pallets and driving forklifts, while Lydia stayed in the van with Mateo, who'd started calling her Miss Liddy, with the kind of affection usually reserved for bedtime stories and scrape-knee comfort. Each morning, Diego returned, exhausted and sore, to find Lydia waiting at the nearby park, brushing sand off Mateo's shoes or reading aloud from the handful of books they'd salvaged from a free box behind the library. The desert mornings were cooler, the air crisp and clean. Diego cherished that hour of peace, the hour before reality barged in. But even peace had a price. One Friday morning he returned limping. His ankle had twisted during a shift when a stack of boxes slipped. He brushed it off as nothing, until he tried to step into the van and nearly collapsed. Lydia caught his arm. You're hurt. I'm fine. You're not. He waved her off. Just twisted it. I've had worse. She looked at him firm. You're going to the clinic. He was too tired to argue. The clinic visit revealed a torn ligament. Minor but serious enough for the doctor to say the dreaded words. You'll need a few weeks off. Weeks. No work meant no pay. No pay meant gas would run out, and with it the fragile life he was holding together with calloused hands and duct tape. Diego sat outside the clinic, head in his hands, watching his son play in the dirt and wondering how it had all unraveled so fast. Lydia sat beside him. We'll figure it out, she said softly. You say that like it's easy. It's not easy. But you don't have to carry this alone. He shook his head. I do. That's the thing. I've always had to. Lydia placed a hand on his shoulder. You're not the only one with weight. He looked at her, then really looked. At the tight lines around her eyes. The way she gripped her stomach more often now, as if bracing herself against something deeper than labor pains. And suddenly he realized she was breaking too. Just more quietly than him. I'm sorry, he whispered. She shook her head. Don't be. Just, let me help. Over the next 2 weeks, Lydia took over what she could. She called around and found a food pantry. She helped Mateo with simple lessons, determined he wouldn't fall behind. She even found a small church outreach program that offered gas cards and diapers, which they would need soon, very soon. Diego hated not working. He hated watching her pick up his slack, especially while carrying a child. But something shifted in that time. A kind of unspoken partnership formed. One night, after Mateo was asleep in the back, Lydia sat beside Diego outside the van, staring up at the stars. "I haven't told you the whole story," she said suddenly. Diego didn't answer, just waited. "My husband, James, left me some money. Not a lot, but enough to start over. His life insurance. I was so overwhelmed. I didn't claim it. His family tried to take it, said I didn't deserve it. He ran." Diego turned toward her. "That money's yours. And your baby's." "I know," she said, her voice shaking. "But now it's tied up in probate. Lawyers, paperwork. It'll take months. I didn't have time to wait." "You still don't," Diego said quietly. She looked down at her belly. "I'm due in 3 weeks." He nodded. "Then we plan for 3 weeks. After that you rest. I'll handle the rest." She laughed, not the carefree kind but the tired, relieved kind that said she didn't believe him, but desperately wanted to. The next morning things got worse. They woke up to find the van booted by city enforcement. A bright orange sticker plastered to the windshield. "Unpaid parking fines, vehicle immobilized." Diego's stomach dropped. He hadn't even known there were tickets. Lydia looked stunned. "What now?" she asked. "I don't know," he whispered. The fine was $280. A mountain to them. They walked Mateo to the park and sat in silence, the world closing in inch by inch. Then Lydia stood up. "I'm going to the church again. Maybe they can help." He nodded, too defeated to argue. While she was gone, Diego sat on the bench watching Mateo chase a butterfly. He fought back tears. How had a single act of kindness turned into this? He'd only tried to help someone. Now he was at risk of losing everything. And yet, would he do it again? Yes. In a heartbeat. By evening, Lydia returned with a gift card for $50 and a note from a woman named Connie at the church. "Hang tight. Help is coming." Diego didn't know what it meant. But that night they slept in the park restroom. A cold, hard floor that Mateo curled up on like it was a camping adventure. Diego and Lydia didn't sleep. They just sat, backs against the tile wall, sharing the same silence. "I feel like I ruined your life," Lydia said finally. Diego turned to her, voice low. "No. You reminded me I still have one." She blinked, surprised. "You and Mateo gave me purpose again. After Elena died, I just existed. You brought me back." She looked away, biting her lip. "You brought me back too." Then she laughed softly. "I can't believe I'm having a baby in a public bathroom." "You're not," he said. "We'll figure it out." The next morning the unexpected happened. A man in a suit stood by the van, waving as they approached. "You Diego Reyes?" he asked. Diego hesitated. "Yeah. I'm from the Helping Hands Foundation. You've been nominated for assistance. Vehicle fines been paid. Full tank of gas too." Diego's jaw dropped. "What?" The man smiled. "Someone from the church submitted your story. Said you helped a pregnant woman in the middle of the desert when you had nothing to give. That you didn't ask for anything in return." Lydia's hand found Diego's. "We help people like you," the man said. "People who remind us what compassion looks like. There's a grant available. Temporary housing. Medical coverage. Even job placement." Diego stared at him, stunned. "Why me?" "Because kindness like yours deserves a second chance." Later that night they stood in a small apartment. Dusty, old carpet, creaky windows. But it had a working kitchen and 2 bedrooms. Mateo ran through it like a whirlwind, giggling. Lydia stared around, speechless. Diego looked at her. "You still think you ruined my life?" She wiped her eyes. "No. I think, maybe we saved each other." He smiled. "We're just getting started." The apartment smelled like old pine cleaner and dust, but to Diego it might as well have been a palace. No more sleeping in parking lots. No more rationing gas and counting loose quarters for bread. Just 4 walls, a roof, a mattress on the floor, and hope. Within a week they settled into a new routine. Mateo had a small bedroom with hand-me-down toys from the church. Lydia used the second room, which doubled as a nursery in progress. Diego took the couch, grateful every night for something soft beneath his aching back. But even with the help from the foundation, life didn't suddenly become easy. The money was enough to cover the basics, but only for 3 months. After that, they'd be on their own again. Diego's ankle had healed enough to start light-duty shifts at a new job, stocking shelves in the early morning at a grocery store. It didn't pay much, but it was honest. He was up at 4 a.m. every day, home by noon. Lydia spent her mornings at prenatal appointments or learning how to navigate government benefits and the probate process for James' life insurance. In the afternoons, they'd cook together, tag-teaming chores and laughing when Lydia tried to teach Mateo lullabies in Spanish. Still, there were shadows beneath the surface. One night after dinner, Diego found Lydia standing in the bathroom, her hands braced on the sink. Her reflection looked tired. No makeup, no energy, but raw and beautiful in its honesty. "I'm scared," she admitted. He stepped inside, keeping his voice gentle. "Of what?" "Everything," she said. "Having this baby. Being alone. Needing help all the time." "You're not alone," he said simply. She looked at him, her eyes flickering. "But I'm not yours." That hit harder than he expected. He stepped closer. "You don't have to be mine for me to care." "But what if I want to be?" He blinked. She looked away, embarrassed. "I didn't mean to say that. I think I'm falling in love with the way you treat people. The way you've treated me." Diego swallowed. His heart beat harder, but he didn't move. "I made a promise to myself after Elena died. No one comes into Mateo's life unless I know it's safe. Real." Lydia nodded slowly, eyes glistening. "I understand." He hesitated, then reached for her hand. "You've never been anything but real." Days passed. Then a week. Then Lydia's due date loomed, and the apartment buzzed with quiet anticipation. They cleaned. They gathered supplies. Diego even found a discounted crib and assembled it one Sunday afternoon while Mateo watched cartoons on the floor. One night, Lydia called out to him from the bedroom. He entered to find her sitting on the bed, her breath shallow, hands clutched over her belly. "I think it's time," she whispered. The hospital was a blur of bright lights, fast footsteps, and tension. Diego stayed by her side through every contraction, every scream, every moment of pain. She squeezed his hand until her nails dug into his skin. "You're doing great," he whispered. Tears ran down her cheeks. "Don't let go." "I won't." 7 hours later, the cry of new life echoed down the hallway. "A baby girl." Lydia sobbed as they placed the tiny bundle in her arms. Diego sat beside her, speechless at the miracle. "She's perfect," he whispered. Lydia turned to him. "I want you to name her." He stared at her, stunned. "Lydia. You saved us. All of us. Her too. I want her name to come from someone who knows what love is." He looked at the child, wrinkled and warm and wiggling against her chest. "Elena," he said softly. "Call her Elena." Lydia smiled through tears. "That's beautiful." Over the next week, their lives changed again. The apartment filled with diapers and lullabies. Diego took on extra shifts to make up for hospital bills not covered by aid. Lydia sent in final documents to the life insurance office, praying the process would go through. One afternoon, Mateo curled up next to Lydia on the couch while she fed the baby. "Are we a family now?" he asked. Lydia kissed his forehead. "We always were, sweet boy. We just didn't know it yet." But good things, Diego had learned, didn't come without testing. One day after work, he came home to find Lydia on the phone. Tense, pacing. When she hung up, her face was pale. "What happened?" he asked. "It's James' parents," she said quietly. "They're contesting the life insurance again. They found out I had the baby. They're saying I don't deserve the money. That James wouldn't have wanted me to raise her with another man." Diego's jaw clenched. "They don't know anything about you. It doesn't matter. If they win, we get nothing. Can you fight it?" She hesitated. "I could. But it would cost money. Lawyers we don't have." Diego stared at the floor. His hands trembled. The foundation's help had ended. Their funds were drying up. And now this. That night, while the others slept, Diego sat alone at the kitchen table. His thoughts were loud. Angry. Panicked. But then he reached for a pen. He wrote a letter. To Connie at the church. He told her everything, not to ask for help but to thank her. To tell her that even if nothing else came their way, she had reminded them that kindness still existed. That he had been ready to give up the day Lydia collapsed in the desert. And now, he had something worth fighting for again. 2 days later, something happened that changed everything. A knock at the door. Diego opened it to find a man and woman in business attire, holding a clipboard and camera bag. Mr. Reyes? We're with Channel 7 News. Connie shared your letter. We'd like to do a story about your act of kindness and how it changed your life. He blinked. What? We think people need to hear this, the woman said. Especially right now. Lydia stood behind him, baby Elena in her arms. Mateo peeked from the hallway. You'll get to tell your story, the man added. And maybe, someone out there will want to help. Diego hesitated. He'd never wanted attention. Never wanted cameras or headlines. But this wasn't about him anymore. He nodded. Hey, let's talk. The story aired on a Friday evening. It wasn't flashy. Just a 5-minute segment at the end of the broadcast, the kind most people might overlook. But it was honest. Diego stood in front of the small apartment, his hands rough and nervous, as he told a reporter how he found a pregnant woman collapsed in the desert, helped her without knowing who she was, and never expected anything in return. Lydia held baby Elena off camera, watching silently. Mateo sat on the reporter's lap, proudly showing off a crayon drawing labeled, "My Family." The next morning everything changed. Diego's phone lit up with unknown numbers. He ignored them. Until one came with a voicemail. Mr. Reyes, my name is Melanie Alston. I run a foundation called New Horizons. We saw your story on the news. Call me. We want to help. He did cautiously. And she wasn't kidding. Melanie explained that New Horizons was a national nonprofit that funded fresh starts for families who demonstrated extraordinary character through adversity. Every year they selected just 3 families for a full-scale relocation, job placement and housing program. And Diego's name was at the top of the list. I'm not a veteran, he said. I'm not special. You're a single dad who saved a stranger's life and never asked for anything. You're exactly what we're looking for. Diego didn't say yes at first. He was hesitant, skeptical. Life had taught him to expect the rug to be pulled out just as things looked up. But then Lydia squeezed his hand. Maybe this is the blessing, she said softly. The one that finally sticks. 2 weeks later, a helicopter flew over their small Arizona town and landed in a nearby field. Neighbors gathered. Mateo's eyes were wide as saucers. Are we going on that? He asked. Diego grinned. Not exactly. The helicopter wasn't for them to ride. It was symbolic. A camera crew filmed as New Horizons representatives stepped out, handed Diego a check and presented a new beginning. Fully paid relocation to Colorado. A 3-bedroom house near a top school district. A secure job for Diego at a distribution center with better pay and benefits. A full legal team to help Lydia finalize her life insurance claim, at no cost. It felt surreal. Too good to be true. But it wasn't. Diego stood in the field, Mateo holding one hand and Lydia holding the other, and felt the weight he'd carried for years finally begin to lift. The move happened fast. Boxes packed. Keys handed over. Goodbyes said. They arrived in Colorado in late fall. Golden leaves scattered the sidewalks. Their new house wasn't a mansion, but it had space. Light. A backyard where Mateo could run and where Elena would one day take her first steps. Diego's new job wasn't glamorous, but he liked it. It was steady. Honest. And for the first time in years he came home before dinner. Lydia cried the day she got the final paperwork. Her husband's life insurance, now legally hers, cleared without dispute, thanks to the legal support from the foundation. James would have wanted me to be okay, she whispered. You are, Diego said. You really are. Months passed. Here came. The family adapted to cold mornings and snowy sidewalks. They decorated their first Christmas tree with handmade ornaments. Mateo lost his first tooth and wrote a note to Santa. Lydia baked for the neighbors. Elena giggled for the first time on New Year's Day. And something else bloomed, quietly but surely. Love. Not rushed. Not loud. Just the kind that grows from shared burdens, late-night feedings, soft apologies, and learning how to be gentle with each other's pain. One evening after putting the kids to bed, Diego and Lydia sat outside, wrapped in blankets, sipping coffee under a quiet snowfall. He turned to him. You remember the day we met? How could I forget? I thought it was the worst day of my life. He smiled softly. Me too. But it led to everything, she said. He reached for her hand. Sometimes the worst day gives birth to the best part. They sat in silence. Then Lydia leaned her head against his shoulder. I'm not running anymore. I'm not surviving anymore, he whispered. I'm living again. With you. 1 year later, Channel 7 aired a follow-up story titled, From the Desert to a Dream. Where are they now? They filmed the Reyes family. Lydia had taken Diego's last name quietly and proudly, at their new home. Mateo showed off his report card. Elena toddled on camera. Lydia smiled shyly, holding Diego's hand. The anchor closed with a line that echoed through hearts across the state. When we help one another without expecting anything in return, we become part of something bigger than ourselves. Diego Reyes gave a stranger kindness in a time of desperation. And in return, life gave him something even greater, a new beginning. Look. On the 2-year anniversary of their meeting, Lydia handed Diego a letter. Inside was a photo of the old van they once lived in and a card that read, You found me broken in the desert. You fixed more than my car, you fixed my hope. This isn't repayment. This is gratitude for the man who gave everything when he had nothing. Underneath the note was a key to a small used camper van she'd bought with part of her insurance. For weekend trips, she said, laughing through tears. So we never forget where we came from. Diego hugged her tight. They didn't need riches or fame. They had something better. A family built not by blood alone but by kindness, sacrifice, and love that showed up when it mattered most.